Sure. Here's a rewritten and rephrased version of the article in a sharper, satirical tone that emphasizes the growing backlash Trump faces, both domestically and internationally, as if Trump didn't have enough problems at home. Just as US markets nosedived to their lowest levels in years, Donald Trump found himself facing an entirely new wave of backlash, this time from international leaders who've apparently had enough of his scorched earth diplomacy. Turns out, world leaders aren't quite as eager to grovel at Trump's feet as some of his Republican loyalists. French President Emmanuel Macron, speaking after Trump's surprise announcement of sweeping tariffs, made it crystal clear, the rest of the world isn't just going to roll over. Macron said, "It was important for us to meet again quickly after last night's announcements from President Trump, which are a shock to international trade, not just for the EU and France, but for the global economy." Translation: Trump's economic grenade just exploded across the globe, and the rest of the world isn't about to sit back quietly. Macron went even further, announcing that major European investments in the US would be paused until there's some clarity. And by clarity, he probably means sanity. The message was blunt: why would European countries pour billions into a country that's actively slapping them with economic penalties? So let's recap. Trump hoped to lure investment to the US by flexing his tough guy routine, hitting allies with tariffs, alienating trading partners, and expecting them to fold like the spineless lackeys he's used to at home. But instead of begging for mercy, other nations are pushing back, choosing pride and solidarity over submission. Even worse, for Trump, it's not just France. China, Japan, and South Korea have now formed a joint front to counter the tariffs. Let that sink in. In an effort to reassert US dominance, Trump has somehow pushed all our biggest trading partners into the waiting arms of China, the very country he claims to be tough on. It's like playing chess and handing your opponent the queen because you thought it would intimidate them. Congressman Jamie Raskin summed it up with brutal clarity. Trump has turned our closest allies into enemies, and our worst enemies into his BFFs. He's crashed the markets, gutted essential services, and is tearing down the very government we rely on to hold everything together. It's almost like Trump mistook being feared for being respected, assuming other countries would prioritize staying in his good graces over maintaining their own dignity. But that's where he miscalculated. Because out here in the real world, unlike the echo chamber of spineless sycophants he surrounds himself with, dignity still exists. As MSNBC's Maria's put it, Donald Trump cannot comprehend dignity. No one in his inner circle has it. He lives in a world of yes men who've checked their self-respect at the door just to bask in his glow. So he cannot imagine anyone telling him, no, not out of fear, but out of principle, and she's right. Trump has surrounded himself with the most submissive cast of political jellyfish we've ever seen. Ronna McDaniel dropped her own last name for him. If Trump asked his inner circle to hand over their firstborns, they'd probably ask paper or plastic. So of course he thought the rest of the world would behave the same way. But as markets crater and allies revolt, Trump is learning the hard way that outside the GOP bubble, spine and self-respect still exist. Still, the cheerleaders in MAGA media are trying their best to spin this disaster. Here's Laura Ingraham insisting that the economic nosedive is just liberal hysteria. Don't listen to Wall Street, they're just mad they can't ship more jobs overseas, she said, apparently mistaking mass layoffs and plummeting 401 kiloseconds for fake news. But this isn't fearmongering, it's reality. The Trump administration's reckless trade policies are triggering real-world consequences. And the blame doesn't rest just with Trump. It's also on the Lindsey Grahams, the Matt Gaetzes, the Jim Jordans, the entire entourage of gutless enablers who've gassed him up like he's a divine king. These people have helped inflate Trump's ego to the point where he thinks crashing the global economy is just negotiating. But the ultimate responsibility still falls on Trump himself, a grown man who should know better, but just doesn't care. He's willing to let Americans suffer if it serves his ego. Rising rents, skyrocketing grocery prices, 401k tanks. He'll shrug it off, because your pain is just a footnote in his story. Let's be real, Trump didn't win the presidency because he cared about Americans. He won because he convinced enough people he did. But in the end, there's only ever been one person Donald Trump truly cares about, and that's Donald Trump. Let me know if you want this rewritten in a different tone, more formal, sarcastic, journalistic, etc. Or if you'd like a shorter version too.